Hi, and you're very welcome back to the Women's National League podcast here on finalwhistle.ie. It's been a minute. We haven't had a show for a couple of weeks because of scheduling difficulties. It turns out Steph getting engaged, having to play in the Champions League, having to play as if that's a bad thing, but also the recent announcement of the equal pay for women's internationals has kept her fairly busy going around the houses. And this morning we were due to record this on Friday morning, but unfortunately just something has come up with an interview with the BBC, and Steph has had to attend to that. So she won't be with us today, but we will be back next week with a full show with both of us in attendance, provided we can get our schedules to match up. Of course, here on finalwhistle.ie, we've been busy. It'll be unawares to yourselves, but we have added a whole new Gaelic football and a brand new ladies football section coming next week on the site, as well as our first publication, which is a look at the world of Leitrim GAA. Of course, we also cover Leitrim Gaelic games here on the website. In terms of what the impact this has on Women's National League, we are going to be back. We're hoping to get back with a regular weekly schedule over the next couple of weeks. We're starting today. We'll be joined in a few minutes by Jetta Berrill of DLR Waves, who finds herself back in the league this year after a little bit of a break due to her presence in Hungary in recent years, completing a degree in veterinary medicine. We'll be chatting to her all about that very, very shortly. In terms of the big news of the week, as well as the fixtures and results from last weekend, it's been an absolutely manic week with news within the league. Some really, really positive news: the appointment of Ruth Fahey to the position of CEO at Galway Women's FC. That's a fantastic appointment. Ruth, well experienced player and administrator within the sport, having spent some time at the FAI, of course, documented well in Champagne football, her time there as well. But she finds herself now back with Galway. We'll be talking to Ruth in a week or two when she gets settled into her new role in Galway. The best of luck to her and to the club. I think it's a big step forward, a very positive step for the sport here to be taking it more seriously and more professionally off the pitch. I think that is the next step, and it might avoid more stories like we're hearing coming out of a couple of clubs at the moment about players who are moving away from the league. Of course, Jamie Finn announced this week that she would be moving to Birmingham. They finished 11th in the Women's Super League in England last year, and she'll be joining them. She joins Marie Hourihan, her international teammate, who comes back from Portuguese football to play with the Brummie side for this season. 1-year deals signed for both girls, but it does mean that Shells lose the services of Jamie Finn from this week. She will be a big loss. Not the last name we expect to see leave the league in the next couple of days. One or two other deals we believe very close to being finalised for some of the top players. Top attacking talent potentially, with both league titles chasers, Peamount and Shells, likely to lose at least one more player to the WSL before it kicks off. It's positive from in terms of the players themselves pushing on and really making an impact at a higher level, or perceived higher level at least. But it's disappointing for the league to continue to keep losing these players, and we need to start putting programs in place to keep these girls in Ireland and be able to offer them the opportunity to stay around. But at the same time, it's positive news that the league is producing players and that we're moving players on to a higher level, and it's all good news, I think, for those individual girls and potentially for our chances at international level. But it does, I suppose, we look at the appointment of Ruth over in Galway and we hope that maybe we can build an industry here and a structure here that will allow those girls to stay here under whatever guise that is, whether it's scholarship programs or whether it's actual employment within the league. That will be, I suppose, light years ahead of where we see ourselves. But I think we need to have that little bit of ambition to push on. And hopefully we'll see that happen in the next couple of years. In terms of other news and big news for women's football, not just here in Ireland, but also around the globe, is the fact that the FAI came out this week. It's why Steph's not with us. She's doing that interview in the BBC, but about equal pay. So now a girl who represents this country gets the exact same amount of a stipend as the men who represent this country. It hasn't been that way before. In fact, up to a couple of years ago, when Steph, her teammates, and including Jetta, who we'll be speaking to about it in a few minutes, when they went on strike back in 2017, a huge step forward for the sport in this country, and really recognition as well. Would be a little bit concerned that it seems to be that the men have taken a pay cut to give to the girls rather than the FAI stumping up the money. It doesn't really matter where the money comes from, but I think it would have been nice just to bring the girls to the level rather than have to pull the men back down to give it to the girls. Either way, it's equality now, and hopefully it stays like that for all time into the future. I think it's important that any person, male or female, has the opportunity to play and they get treated with the same respect. And I think the monetary value, the impact it has, can't be measured. I think you look at the reality is that for the lads, most of them, the vast majority of them, are on quite lucrative pay deals with their own clubs. The scale of the money that's involved probably wouldn't have a huge impact on their day-to-day lives. But when you've got girls who are working in day jobs, missing time of college or time off school, and just can't afford to pay the rent, if they have to take a week off an unpaid 0-hour contract, which for the most part to be available for international football, our players are finding themselves on, the ones that aren't professional at least. Even those who are professional, it's probably a loose enough term, the money they're on would just about sustain one person, never mind a family. So that 1,500 euros is the talk, or the lower end of the range that the price will be. The match bonuses will be. I think that's huge. It makes a huge difference to girls who are missing maybe a week or two off work at various stages through the year. So best luck to everybody who that affects, and congratulations to everyone involved in that strike back in 2017 who really took on the establishment. Wasn't very popular at the time within football circles, but to see it kind of come to fruition now and really have hit home and made a proper result for the girls who will play for Ireland in the future is a fantastic achievement. So congratulations to everybody involved in that, particularly to Emma Byrne, Anya Gorman, Stephanie, and those that were at the forefront of that. So congratulations to everybody on that particular achievement. Huge news for the game in the country. Now, let's get on with the show. We'll talk about results and fixtures in the league later on. We've missed a couple of rounds, so we're probably not going to get too bogged down into individual games today. I've nobody to talk to about them anyway, but we'll go through the results from last weekend in a few minutes. But first, let's catch up with one of the newest arrivals to the league, and that is newest returnees to the league, we'll say, and that is, of course, Jetta Berrill of DLR Waves. Jetta, you're very, very welcome to the program.
Thanks very much, Breifne. Thanks for having me.
And you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Now, it's been a while, I suppose. Our paths would have first crossed. I won't say how many years ago, but it's nearly a decade with the Leinster Colleges team. And I've kind of followed your career through a number of different guises and a number of different clubs over the last 10 years. It's great to see you back in the league. How are you enjoying life back at Belfield?
Really enjoying it. I came back there in April, May from being away, and went back in with DLR and Graham. Just kind of the start, just to get fitness up really, and kind of just as an outlet for everything, because I'm still in college, so just thought I want to play a bit of ball again, but really enjoying it and getting a few minutes as well, so having a ball.
Now, you mentioned you're still in college, but we started the conversation by saying we met the colleges team a decade ago. That sounds like a long educational process, much longer than most people. Can you talk us through maybe why you're still in college or how you're still in college? Because it's been a bit of a unique journey for you.
It has. It's been a long time. I'm in college now. I think sad to say 8 years. But I'm at the end of it. So I did 4 years in UCD. I did neuroscience. But I always kind of wanted to do veterinary. So I went then, and I just decided to go over to Hungary and to do it. And it's been 4 years now, and I'm at the end of it. And I'm excited that I made the visible, let's say, and went over and did it. Now I graduate in February as a vet, so that'll be the end of my college. No more college years for me.
Hungary, I know a few people who've been through that course over in Hungary. Obviously, it's for maybe financial and time reasons, it's a little bit shorter doing it over there than it might be here. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's 4.5 years over there, whereas it's like 5.5 years in Ireland. So yeah, just went over, and now it's at the end of the end of the 4.5 years now.
Excellent. Well, you'll be out doing whatever it is that vets do. We won't get into the details here. It's a child-friendly show. We don't need to hear about where you put your hands when it's a new day job. But in terms of the football, you're back in DLR. You're having a good season. You must be delighted with the way things are going. Of course, the Cup this weekend. How has the return been for you to get back into Graham's side there over in DLR?
Really enjoyable. I think that Graham and John, the boys, have a great setup over in DLR, and even fitness wise, and the trainings have been intense and very good and enjoyable. And I think the league is just a bit out of our reach this year. But even we're finishing, say, looking at fourth place, and that's just so much better than the girls did last year. So it's just progressing so much as a team. And like you said, we have the cup quarterfinals tomorrow against Galway. So we'll be looking for a bit of silverware there and looking for the win.
How important is it to keep that winning spirit in the side when you start getting a bit of momentum up and going, and maybe take a little feather in your cap if you manage to get a result against Galway this weekend?
Oh, so important. I think I was away last week, but the girls are saying training was brilliant and really intense. And then training this week, everyone's looking sharp. So everyone's up for it. But we know Galway are also up for it, so it'll be a really good game. And really looking forward to it. It's kind of the games that you want to play, so everything to lose.
Now, of course, before you went to Hungary, you did play with Peamount for a couple of seasons and DLR Waves for a couple of seasons under Eileen Gleeson in both places. In terms of, I suppose, the idea of getting far in the cup and maybe even lifting the cup at the end of the year, you've never had that experience. So what's it been like being involved with those sides, with those teams that are used to success and silverware, but it just hasn't quite happened for you in those years that you've been with them?
Yeah, I know with Peamount for the 2 years I was there, and then with UCD Waves, we got to the cup final a few times, but it just never went our way at the end of the day. In the Aviva, which was heartbreaking. But yeah, it's tough. But I like looking forward now with DLR. Like that's kind of the aim, and just to get to a cup final and then say winning the cup would be amazing. So that's kind of the aim of the next few weeks in the training sessions. That's what we're aiming to do.
Of course, Galway, the last time you were down there was a 2-0 win back in July. Chances of repeating that again tomorrow, of getting through to the semi-finals?
Hopefully that's the plan, but it won't be an easy game, and I don't think anyone's going in thinking that it's going to be an easy game. Galway are a tough side, and I think they have the injection now, a bit of experience with Julianne Russell and Nate Burka back in. So yeah, it'll be a tough game, and it'll be a good game. So hopefully we'll come out with the win. That's the plan, but by no means are we going in thinking that it's going to be a repeat of the last time we played them.
In terms, I suppose, of where the season's panning out, there's, as you mentioned, a big gap to the top three at the moment, but there's also a nice healthy gap to the five teams beneath you. Galway themselves, they're 8 points behind. You have 3 games in hand on them as well because of a couple of games that had been postponed earlier in the season. So you could, in theory, I suppose, close the gap closer to the top of the table and finish with that nice big healthy gap where you really are part of a top 4 rather than top 3. Is that important? How many points are between you and third, if it is indeed 40 finish in the season?
Definitely. I think even though we kind of couldn't really look for a top 3 position now, like fourth's so important to us, and winning every game, like taking every game as it comes, as a must-win game is really important for the side and for the confidence even going into next season.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about, I suppose, what's been in the news this week, which is equal pay for men and women. There's been a lot of positive noise coming out of the FAI on that. It's the reason why Steph isn't with us today. She's actually speaking on BBC as we're recording this about the issue. On the face of it, seems like a very positive step for the women's sport. I know you were part of that squad with Ireland that had that strike back in 2017. Can you bring us back to that moment and talk to us about what was happening in your world? Because you would have been a very novice player in the squad at that stage. You would have maybe a handful of caps, but still kind of part of the team, but I suppose not so experienced that you're kind of saying, well, I'm going to go on strike here, but as part of the squad you were there. What was it like from your point of view going into that experience, taking on the FAI and actually standing firm and making these changes and seeing it come to this fruition 4 years later?
Yeah, it is amazing. That was years ago now for me. But it is so interesting and so positive seeing where it started out to where it's like ended now. And I think everyone that was involved in that experience should be like really proud of themselves. And it's great for women's football everywhere. Like it's great for women's football all over. Yeah, back then I was only a baby, so I kind of was just in the background, just supporting as a team. But the likes of say Anya and Emma Byrne, big voices that started this whole thing. So it's great to see.
What was your first, at the time, as kind of, as you say, someone who was in the squad supporting maybe the louder voices or the more experienced voices in that team? What was your first sign that there was going to be a strike, and your own personal thoughts as someone kind of, as you mentioned, you're a baby, you still had a degree in your pocket at that stage. You weren't quite a baby, but in terms of just like what's going through your head? Are you thinking about it's okay for Emma Byrne? She's in her late 30s. I might have an international future here and I could jeopardize that. Did that come into your head at all? Was it even a discussion in your own psyche? Did you talk to friends and family or coaches about maybe what the impact might be on you personally? Because people who've taken on the FAI before, they haven't had a great track record of further in their international careers.
No, to be honest, that was never really a thought, and thinking back now, it was never a thought that went around any of the girls at all. It was all kind of looking forward to the future and kind of progressing as a team and progressing women's football. That was the main aim, really.
Excellent. Well, good to hear that as the squad was that united, because sometimes you do get a few people just kind of thinking about, well, how does this affect me? In terms of, I suppose, the actual announcement that came out from the FAI, we still have to see exactly how it's going to work, and there haven't been specifics on the numbers involved. But from what we can make out about what was happening over the years was that the match fee for the men was around €2,500. Before 2017, I believe the match fee was non-existent for the ladies. It then came in around the €500 mark. And now it's going to be parity somewhere above 1,500 is what has been said in the statements that have come out. Is it a little bit disappointing that it appears to come from the men's side of the house, taking a deduction to give to the women rather than the FAI just meeting the same fee, or is that irrelevant?
I don't know, to be honest. I think at the end of the day, it's kind of the same outcome. So, look, we'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about equality, and now nobody can say the men are getting anything more than the women. So it is positive. Yeah. It's all positive. It's just one of those things that just didn't quite sit right with me coming out of this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a massive step forward, a huge step forward for both the game here, and as you said, an example to other federations around the world, and hopefully we'll see that follow suit over the next few months. In terms of your own ambitions, obviously you've talked about where you are with the league. You came in late this season, but DLR have really rallied well to kind of emerge from that group in the bottom half of the table, or the middle third, bottom third of the table, to really seal that fourth place. More than likely, obviously things could change down there in Belfield, but at the moment it's looking pretty good for you to be in third place or fourth place come the end of the season. A nice cup run, would that add something nice to the whole equation as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think that's where us as a team, that's where we have our sights set for to get into a cup final. Just taking it one game at a time. So we beat Bows there a few weeks ago, and now on to Galway. But yeah, we need to get a bit of silverware. It would be a really nice way to end the season.
Yeah, of course. In terms of the actual the teams above you, that will be probably the fancy names to be on the cup at the end of the season. You've had some great results and great performances against those teams at the top of the table. I know there was a great performance against Wexford earlier on in the season, maybe before you joined. There was a 1-1 draw, and they only just with a late minute goal, I think, in that game in Belfield earlier on in the season. And you could definitely mix it with Shells and Peamount as well on a one game basis on a cup semi-final or a cup final. Should you get there, you definitely fancy your chances of maybe causing a bit of an upset. What are the ambitions? Is a cup medal, an elusive cup medal for you, a realistic target for this season?
I think so. Yeah, like, why not? Like, we played Shells and Peamount there the last 2-3 weeks, and we lost 2-1. But I think we played well against them, and it wasn't an easy game for either side. And like you said, like, they'd be the top two teams in the country. So if we get to the cup final against one of the big names, I don't see why not. Like, well, we couldn't cause an upset and come out with a win.
Well, listen, I suppose we're not going to cheer against anybody else in the league, but at the same time, we do like to see the smaller sides taking steps forward, and there's been a really big one taken by the girls down there in DLR. So well done to you and your teammates and to the staff and everyone involved. And best luck over the weekend. And you never know what we might see later in the season. Jetta, thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure catching up.
Thank you.
Best luck.
Perfect. Thank you.
great to see Jetta back in the league. Of course, an Irish international, a couple of caps to her name as well, and maybe we might see her add to that in the future. But I suppose the first step is to push DLR Waves as far up that league table as they possibly can get, and of course that cup, and maybe a cup run if they manage to get over Galway this weekend would be something to talk about over there in Belfield. And the best luck to them, and I suppose everybody taking part in the cup this year. Now, this weekend, of course, is all about the cup action, but last weekend we did have a full set of league games taking place. And DLR were the idle side, so 4 teams with the other 8 teams taking part in them. Peamount United and Wexford, they played out a game down at Ferry Carrig, 1-1 the score down there. Not really a fantastic result for either side, although they will be delighted not to have lost the game. 2 early goals there. Lana McAvoy in the 5th minute put Peamount en route to a big win, but unfortunately for them, Avie and Clancy equalised just after the half-hour mark, and it would play out as a 1-1 draw, which basically has handed an opportunity now to Shells. Shells went down to Cork City, turners across the venue, and probably could have won the game more comfortably than they did. 3-1 the final score. Some really, really good performances defensively for Cork. Kept the score at bay there. Shells well on top in that. 3 first half goals for them. Emily Whelan, Noelle Murray and Ciara Grant on the score sheet for them, and they find their space at the top of the table. They are currently 2 points clear from Peamount, although Peamount do have that game in hand later in the year, so it's still all to play for at the top of the table. Be interesting to see how that pans out over the coming weeks as the league table takes more shape and actually finalizes itself. Only a handful of games left for both sides in that competition so far. 6 games left for Shell, 7 for Peamount. Who can edge that out? And will we be looking at the opportunity to actually see another decider like last year, where they had a playoff in the second last round of games last year, which sealed the title in Peamount's favor last year? Will Shells get the opportunity to maybe get a bit of revenge on that for next year? Of course, they play each other September the 11th in a week and a half's time, and they'll be looking to maybe see how they can seal that out later in the season, and it'll be a big decider. It won't settle the league one way or the other, but it will kind of indicate who's going to come out of the season with the title. A result for Peamount in that particular game would probably give them the advantage to be 1 point ahead with a game in hand and only 6 games to play. 5, of course, for Shelburne at that time. Other results from around the grounds: at Lone Town 2, Treaty 1, goals from Emily Corbett and Leisha O'Ada, while Gillian Keegan had equalised for Treaty earlier in the game, but late on, with 12-15 minutes to go in that game, Leisha struck for the winning score, and that moves at Lone Town up to level with Bohemians at the bottom of the table. So a decent result for them. Their Bows, of course, had been over or leapfrogged by Athlone, but both managed to get a point in Galway to edge themselves back off the bottom of the table. So all go at the bottom. Only 1 point separates 6th and 9th. So a fairly competitive finish to that season. Bows, of course, with 2 games in hand yet to play. So interesting to see how that pans out. It's going to be an interesting run-in at both ends of the table. And as we heard from Jetta earlier, DLR Waves quite happy to be in that 4th spot. Galway in a clear 5th as well. So we'll see how that pans out over the next couple of weeks. In terms of this weekend, of course, it's all about the Cup. And as we heard from Jetta, DLR Waves, they're looking forward to their clash down in Galway on Saturday afternoon. They've beat them the last time they were down there, 2-0 the final score just a couple of weeks ago in July, and they'll be hoping to repeat that feat. But of course, with their new CEO appointed down there, it will be a case of Galway hoping to start her reign as they mean to continue with a victory. Time will tell. Best luck to both sides in that competition. Shelburne, they host Cork City in their game at 2 o'clock on Saturday. Wexford Youths, they will entertain at Lone Town in Ferry Carrig Park at 6:30, while that Galway DLR game, that kicks off at 7:30 on Saturday. And Sunday afternoon, as usual, Treaty United host Peamount United. So for most teams, this is their first opportunity to taste a bit of cup action. Dreams of the Aviva and a cup final in November still await at least 2 of these teams. But for all 8, they'll be going to bed tonight with aspirations of being that team in that final in just about 2 months' time. Lots to play for the clubs this year. That's pretty much it for this week. We will delve into a bit more detail in all of those topics we talked about over the coming weeks. The show is back. Hopefully we can sort out our scheduling issues. Just it's difficult when you've got myself and Steph both exceptionally busy over the last month or so. We just haven't been able to find an hour where we're both available. So we have started to work ahead to try and get that in a more regular schedule from here. Delighted to be back and delighted to be looking forward to the run into a very, very competitive league campaign. Will it be Shells? Will it be Peamount? Will Wexford throw a spanner in the works and close that gap right down with both teams ahead of them? It's not beyond the realms of possibility. A result last week, a positive result against Peamount would have helped, but they still can close that gap. They have a few games left themselves to get into that mix. They also have to play, I think they have to play Shells once yet again this season. They do. That game fixed for November the 13th. So that could be a big, big game in terms of where the league title is going to finish up. Well, for me, Breifne, on the show this week, we will be back next week with another show. I'll be back with Steph Roach here on finalwhistle.ie. We'll talk to you then.